Hello and welcome to the Timberpad Pro tutorial series. This is video 3B, in which we will be working with the Tally tab and the Saw-Pulp height mode. So this is the same information that we were covering in video 3 with the exception of the change of Saw-Pulp height mode versus multi-product. And we will be using a different data set for this one. Now, something I would like to stress is that mixing these data sets up between multi-product and Saw-Pulp height within the same cruise in Timberpad lends itself to the opportunity for losing your data, some of your data at least. It's possible to overwrite some of it, so when possible I would say avoid mixing these two options up. However, if you have collected for one cruise in both styles, it's possible to import those two data sets as one within Tall Timber Cruise Processor, and that knows how to handle it very well. So let's get started. For this new cruise, I've entered in my project name, cruiser initials, stand, and acreage. I've also changed the stocking level, and this red pine plantation is going to be something that I want to measure in Saw-Pulp height. So I can click that radio button at the bottom of the setup tab here, and we're ready to move on to our tally tab and start taking some data for these plots. So clicking that up at the top here. Something I just want to remind everybody is that I'm using an emulator software here, so some of the behavior we get is different from what you should see on your Android devices. So our first tree is going to be a red pine, and I'm going to put in a diameter for that of 15 inches. Now, the next part of this form that I click on, and it can be anywhere on the form that is selectable, will bring up the horizontal limiting distance ghost message down here at the bottom of the screen. So watch for that. I'll click acceptable growing stock here. That's just something that doesn't get in the way. 33.7 feet for a 15-inch tree and a BAF 15. So if you're using a fixed radius plot and you don't want that to pop up when you enter your diameters, you can turn the warnings off in the setup tab and it will get rid of it. If on the other hand you'd like to check it more than once and you want to avoid entering the diameter again, it's easy to just click this HLD button here, and that will bring up the limiting distance for you. Again, this is for the slope percentage and basal area factor that you have set. This is something that we'll cover in the Tools tab under the Limiting Distance Calculator. So, moving on with this tree, I'm going to set a saw height that I measure or estimate from the ground up. So for this tree, I'm going to say it's a 45-foot saw height. This is including a 1-foot stump, so don't estimate the length of log here. The volume equations within Tall Timber Cruise Processor will subtract a 1-foot section for the stump from this. And the pulp height, that will be the overall merchantable height of the tree to the top diameter that I have set. So I have my top diameter set to 0 here. The default would be 4 inches. But if I'm importing my data into the Tall Timber Cruise Processor, as I will be for this case, leaving it set as 0 will allow the Cruise Processor to estimate what the diameter would be at this merchantable height based on empirical taper equations. So I'm going to leave it set at 0 and let Tall Timber do that work for me. Now I've got everything entered for this, excluding notes, which there were none that I wanted to take for this tree. And I'm going to use the tree duplicate button here, TD+, to enter another red pine. So this just saves me the time of entering the species information, and I can change my diameter now. So I'll give this a 14-inch diameter and a saw height of 40 feet, pulp height of 50, which is again the overall merchantable height of the tree, the difference between these two being the length of pulpwood in the tree, and a top diameter of 0, so that again Tall Timber will make that estimate for me rather than me making an estimate call in the field. I'll call this an acceptable growing stock tree, and because I'm in a plantation and I have several of these same trees that are very similar in the product height and diameter values, I'm going to set this repetition to 2, and that will save me time of entering another tree record because I have one that is nearly identical. So now that we've got a couple trees entered into this plot, let's add a new plot, skip over a couple here as we shouldn't be doing, and make this one a zero tally. So this zero tally will look a little bit different than in the multi-product mode. Selecting from the drop-down list, I've got, again, the numeric species values are always an option for inputs here, and also the zero tally option is at the top of the list. So when I select zero tally, that will populate these fields. I'll get a 5 in diameter, a 0 in saw height, a 0 in pulp height, and an unacceptable growing stock selection down at the bottom of the page. And so what these all are placeholders for the data set so that it does not show up as a blank. It is simply a tree record that indicates that there were no trees in the plot. So that is what the zero tally tab looks like. The difference here is what the product will look like in the table down at the bottom. So that was cruising with the Saw-Pulp height option, and please stay tuned for more Timberpad videos. Thanks for watching.